tonight. Are they pass catchers or blockers, or are they both? It's all things tight ends on the Draft Beard Podcast. Hey guys, I'm Joshua Klein, your host of the Draft Beard Podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight as I count down my top tight ends of the 2025 NFL Draft. We're going to go with my top 7 tight ends in this year's draft. So before we do that, if you could do me a favor, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you could do that, I guess helps me get this content into the hands of those who love the NFL and the NFL Draft as we inch closer each day to the 2025 NFL Draft. So people don't want to miss out on the content that they could like. So like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you guys get notified exactly when my latest episodes drop. So we have the tight end class, which is a very good class. When I first started looking into the tight ends in this year's NFL Draft, there was all the rage, all the buzz of how great this class was. I cooled off a little bit on this class, I still think it's deeper than what a lot of people are giving credit for. The top end of the class is really good, but I don't think the middle of the class there of the day 2, early day 3 people was as good as I thought it was going to be. So we'll get started with my number 7 tight end in this year's NFL Draft. And that's Mitchell Evans, the tight end out of the University of Notre Dame at 6'5", 253 pounds. He's 22 years of age. He ran a 4.72 40-yard dash at his pro day. Mitchell, he's a well-rounded tight end from Notre Dame. He uses his size well. He blocks decent. He's a reliable receiver. He's going to be seen more as a tight end 2. That's where I kind of see him as maybe a high-end backup tight end. He's a physical blocker. He's a stout inline blocker with the strong punch. Really good low pad level, seals edges well. Reliable hands. She has a 70% career first down or touchdown conversion rate. He aligned inline 60% of the time, slot at 25, H-back at 10, and out wide 5. So he's more of an inline tight end. He does a good job at finding soft spots, in zone coverage, uses leverage well, really has toughness through contact, good red zone threat. He lacks top end speed and burst. He struggles to stretch seams and man coverage. Does have that injury history in 2023, the ACL, MCL tear. 2022, he had a fractured foot. He does block. It's still raw in technique. His hand placement needs improvement. Footwork needs improvement. He's not a yards after the catch guy at all. Minimal acceleration after catches. He really doesn't get chunk plays. He rarely breaks any tackles. He hasn't really done well at route running. He doesn't have really good crisp breaks. Kind of rounds them off a little bit. Doesn't create separation versus man coverage. But I think he could do well if you get a team that utilizes a lot of 12 personnel, maybe some play action. I think he can perform well. He's going to be a decent tight end too. Really good floor. Don't see a super high upside with him. I think his comp is kind of a Hunter Henry, who was drafted in the 2nd round in 2015, or maybe a Durham Smythe out of Miami. The Dolphins picked in the 4th round in 2018. He's a little bit more of a throwback tight end, right? More blocking, maybe can get you some pass catching ability, but that's why I have him at my number 7 tight end. The next guys on our list as we get going 6 to 1, these guys are definitely all going to be more of a better pass catching variety. Mitchell Evans was probably the best of that next tier of guys who are a little bit more blocking, maybe some pass catching ability, but I think he can offer a little bit of both. But as we move forward, starting with my number 6 guy on my list, and that is Terrence Ferguson out of the University of Oregon. Terrence is 6'5", 247 pounds, 22 years of age. He is more of a pass catching a little bit more pass catching abilities. Versatile. He played for 4 years. He's got an athletic profile. He is a smooth, long-strided pass catcher with a large catch radius. With those 33-inch arms, 78-inch wingspan. He high point throws very well. He does a good job at getting to balls that maybe weren't thrown perfectly. Smooth pass catcher. He's got really fluid hands and good body control. A good vertical threat. He averaged 13.7 yards per catch. Played inline at 40% of the time. He played more slot at 35% of the time, then played a little bit of H-back, a little bit out wide. Does a decent job at leaping, so he can be a red zone threat. Does a good job at sitting in voids in the zone. You can tell he played basketball. Not a very good blocker. He doesn't have very good core strength, not a very good punch. He's lean for that 6'5" frame. Rounds off his route running. He does not have really sharp, crisp routes. He's got high hip, really long strides. He doesn't have elite separation. He gets decent yards after catch. He's not like Mitchell Evans, who just basically doesn't have any yak whatsoever. And his lateral quickness isn't really that great. I think he could be a decent receiving tight end in the NFL. I think teams who utilize more of the F or move tight end, spread offenses would do him well. I think he's not going to line up a lot. I think he could be more of a bigger slot, joker tight end type player at the NFL level. I do compare him at the high up ceiling, just size wise, right? Is Dalton Kincaid would be the absolute ceiling, maybe more of a Jordan Akins of the Cleveland Browns. He's a polished receiving tight end. Again, he exploits the zone, stretch seams, can do well at dominating the red zone. I think the Chargers, the Broncos, those types of teams who could use a tight end would benefit from having a player like Terrence Ferguson, but he's not going to give you much as a blocker and not much after yards after the catch. That's why I had him at number 6. My next tight end on my list, getting into the top 5 of my list, and that's Elijah Arroyo of the Miami, Florida Hurricanes. 6'5", 254 pounds, 22 years old. Is used a lot as an F tight end at the University of Miami. He had a breakout season in 2024. He had an ACL tear in 2022. He did well. He performed really well with Cam Ward. Dazzled with his separation skills, really good speed. You can tell he played some basketball. Does he have 3-down ability? Probably not. He's a really good athlete, strong hands, really good catch drop rate, right? Only 2.1% career drop rate, only 1 drop in all his targets in 2024. Better route runner than Terrence Ferguson, right? He does a really good job at using head fakes, tempo changes. He creates separation, which is one of the reasons why I had him ahead of Terrence Ferguson. Better route runner. Again, lineup versatility. Played a little bit more inline than Terrence Ferguson. He had 16.9 yards per catch in 2024. So he does a good job also finding voids and zones, following around when his QB scrambles, which we know that Cam like to do that at the University of Miami. Play a little hero ball, get off schedule a little bit. Not a great blocker. He's underdeveloped. He lacks that lower body strength, really lean frame. He struggles to move the bigger defender, sustain blocks, right? He needs to add some weight, get some more technical ability to his game and learning how to block. Again, one of the things that concerns me is he didn't break out till his very last year and the injury history, but it was really his ability to be a little bit better route runner than what I saw from Terrence, which was what broke the kind of the tie there, which had me propel him above Terrence Ferguson and have him in my top 5. I think he could fit anywhere, West Coast, spread, offense, those utilizing, again, that same position as an F move tight end. I had a comp to him as maybe a Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals, 6'6", 245, similar there, and maybe a top end is a Tucker Kraft style tight end. Both were athletic. Both don't block very well and a steep learning curve in blocking. So I think Elijah can come in and he can be productive fairly quickly. That's why I had him at my number 5 tight end. I think he can create some mismatches. But, maybe start off as a tight end number 2. Maybe he can develop into a tight end 1 in the NFL. But I liked him. The 1 year of the late breakout is what kept him behind some of the other guys that I have in my list. And we'll get to my number 4 tight end in this list. And this is a polarizing prospect here. And that is the Bowling Green superstar, Harold Fannin Jr. at 6'3", 241 pounds. A guy who didn't have a great 40, 4.71 40, but it was faster than what I thought he was going to run. He wasn't below that threshold that you need to see from tight ends, at least being a 4.8 40 and better. I am not on the super, super high upside on Harold Fannin, but I don't think he's going to be not functional at the NFL level, right? He was a high production tight end. He's got okay athleticism. He's undersized. He's not going to block very well. He's going to be a big move, maybe a big slot tight end at the NFL level. He had absolutely elite production last year with 117 catches, over 1,500 yards, and almost 120 yards receiving per game. He was basically the majority of Bowling Green's defense or offense. He's a really good route runner. He manipulates defensive backs very well with really good tempo, head fakes. He was 96th percentile in separation percentage last year. Really good, reliable hands. He only dropped 2 of 128 targets in 2024. And he does a good job at getting yards after catch. He had 868 yards last year after contact and 32 missed tackles. He's weird because he's not like this great athlete, but he just finds himself open. Not to say that he's going to be this guy, so don't get me wrong, but it reminds me of the way I watch the older now Travis Kelce move. He's not very athletic either, but it just seems like as he goes, even though that you're looking at a guy who's not that fast, that the way he moves, it seems like the field slows down around him. I think he can do really good at being short, intermediate, or long receptions. It's just weird. His frame, and he's a weird guy to look at and watch play. But I think there's so much potential there for him to being a really big slot. He's not really a true tight end because he is very inconsistent at blocking. I'm not really going to expect this guy to want to line up in line a lot, but he's super young. He's only 20 years old. There's a lot of room for growth with him, right? He obviously beat that undersized frame, doesn't have very good play strength. He is a straight-lined athlete, doesn't do well with press coverage. He's going to do better at finding this, spaces in the zones. He's not a great route runner. Elijah Arroyo is much better a route runner than Harold Fannin Jr. Doesn't do a good job at, he kind of relies on hitches, seams, overs, crosses, not very nuanced at all, and not a great contested catch guy either. So he's kind of a weird enigma to kind of figure out what he's going to be at the NFL level. But I think he's going to figure it out, and he can be quite a productive tight end in the NFL, really just like a big slot. Maybe like an Evan Ingram style tight end, Jonnu Smith, the Miami Dolphins. He's going to be, I think, just a dynamite pass catcher at the NFL level. I don't know if he's going to get to like that Pro Bowl top-notch level. I think there's some flaws in his game, but that yards after catch ability, I'm going to go and think that Harold Fannin Jr. is going to be a really good starter at the NFL. Maybe not right away. He's not as athletic as what you'd like to see in the NFL. Really, athleticism does correlate well to being successful as a tight end in the NFL. But I had a 3rd round grade on him. It wasn't super high. I didn't have a 2nd or 1st round grade on him. Pretty much a true 3rd round grade. I know he's a polarizing prospect out there, but I'm gonna kind of split the middle on him. I think he's going to function in the NFL. I don't know if he's going to be, an all-world ridiculous tight end like we have seen, because we've seen a lot of tight ends come into the NFL over the last few years and kind of revolutionize the position. But I definitely would be a team that wouldn't be disappointed in taking Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. I think that production that he had in college, that there's some things that he does that I think will translate to the NFL, get to the right coaching staff, and teams can kind of figure out how to use them effectively. That takes me up to my number 3 tight end in this year's draft, and that is Mason Taylor, the tight end out of the University of LSU, 6'5", 246 pounds. He ran a 4.68 40. Taylor he's a loose mover. That shows up at the catch point, shows up in his route running. Mason has very soft hands. Again, he doesn't drop the ball. That is one good quality about this tight end class. As you see, there isn't a lot of guys in this class who struggle with drops. Really good zone awareness. Difference here, he's a really polished route runner, uses his leverage, the head fakes, good stems. He's a willing blocker. Here's the thing. The guys behind him with Fannin Jr. and Ferguson, those type of guys, even some guys farther down the list that if you want to do some research on, like Rondé Gadsden and some of these other guys, we have a lot of pass catching tight ends in this draft. It's not to say that Mason Taylor is a good blocker, because he's not, but he is at least willing to give some effort. And this is why I moved him up. I had him farther down the draft board early on in the process, and I moved him up into kind of this tier on his own, because I think he's going to be an okay run blocker. He's going to have some issues where he's going to have some lapses, and your team's going to be like, oh, man, well, there was one quarterback sack. Good job, Mason. Other times, he's going to hold his own. He does have good pad level. He does do an okay job at trying to hold the edge there. Again, he's another of these tight ends who can play all over. He's played the most in line of the guys I've already mentioned. He's the son of Jason Taylor, so he has that football pedigree. He's durable, hasn't had injury issues. Now, he's not as athletic as some of the other guys in this class. He doesn't have the yards after catch ability that, say, a Harold Fannin does, but he has the better route running ability, but with some ability to try to block. Definitely doesn't pop when he blocks. He struggles against man coverage. He rounds off his routes a little bit there. Could have broadened out his route tree, and he's not a deep threat. I think Terrence Ferguson is more your deep threat in this class as comparing to Mason Taylor. So I had Mason Taylor in my top 3, second round grade. Everybody else I had third, except for my last tight end there out of Notre Dame. I had him, just Mitchell Evans, at my number 7. I had him as a 4th round grade here. And then it takes us to the top 2. So they're in a tier on their own. Mason Taylor kind of fit in his own. And then you had, Evans, Ferguson, Arroyo, Fannin Jr. kind of in a tier there. But the top 2 are just leaps and bounds above everyone else in this class. I had them both near the top 10 right in there on my big board. And I'm not a guy who is one of these people who in a normal draft year would advocate for drafting tight ends in the top 10. I know the position has changed a lot, and we've had a lot of really good tight ends come into the league, and it's a position that is more utilized. We're seeing a lot more stars, but I just don't know if the positional value and what you have to pay that tight end is there currently in the NFL, right? With the cost of left tackles going up, the cost of wide receivers going up. I haven't seen that massive increase yet in tight ends. So do you want to spend a first round pick in the top 10, pay that tight end what that player is worth? If you go back in history and look at how many of those tight ends that we thought were going to be rock stars, did they really work out and justify? You get like the kid from Atlanta, right? Or you got TJ Hawkinson, who was drafted by the Lions. Hated that pick in the top 10. I just think there are better players that would have provided better positional value. Now, he's turned out to be a really good tight end. He is one of the top tight ends in the NFL. Deserves every penny he got from the Minnesota Vikings. So knowing that and me still putting guys like Colston Loveland, who is my number 2 tight end in this draft, but is super close, like 1 or 2 spots in my big board behind who will be my number 1 tight end. This is an exceptional top end of the tight end class. And Colston Loveland out of the University of Michigan. Well, I love this guy. Colston is a great receiver of the football. He has elite receiving skills. He's a natural hands catcher. Again, only a 3.48% drop rate. He's good size, 6'6", decent arm length, and he's the better pass catcher of the top 2. Massive catch radius with that huge 78-inch wingspan. Really fluid route running. He runs the full route tree. A lot of the other guys in the class have very limited route trees or can improve in route running. He is the best route running tight end in this draft. Really good seams, crossers, ouch, hitches. I think you can find him downfield. He also has the yards after a catch ability that you see from Harold Fanon Jr. He also has the yards after a catch ability with 5.2 yards per catch. Lined up a lot, split in the slot. He lined up wide. He does really well with motion. Runs choice routes and screens very effectively. Finds the soft spots in the zone. So I really love Colston Loveland. I think he's going to develop into a Pro Bowl tight end, another one of these tight ends that's going to come in the league and join this resurgence at tight end. I think he's a better blocker than a lot of people are giving him credit for. I know he had a 53.3 PFF run blocking grade and a 30.9 pass blocking grade. I think there's more there to his game. Now, he's lean. He doesn't break tackles. I think he uses his agility and to get the yards after the catch, but he doesn't really break tackles. That's not his game. Not a great contested catch guy. The problem with him, obviously, he's had some injury concerns, right? He missed 3 games in 2024. He did undergo some surgery back in January. But I love Colston Loveland. I wouldn't even be upset if, people who say he's better than Tyler Warren. I think they're very close. They're just 2 different styles of tight end. So really they're like 1A, 1B. I think a high-end upside is a Sam Laporta tight end, Dalton Kincaid. Love Colston Loveland. Pro Bowl potential, very high floor, very high ceiling. That takes us to my number 1 tight end in the NFL draft, and that is Tyler Warren out of the University of Penn State, 6'6", 256 pounds. This guy's different. Colston's more of your true tight end. Tyler Warren is just a type of player that we haven't seen at the tight end position. He's versatile. You're going to be able to use him everywhere. You can tell he used to play quarterback. You can use him as a wildcat. You can use him inline. You can use him as a slot. You can use him as an H-back. He had elite production last year, 104 catches, 1,233 yards, and 22 touchdowns. Strong hands. He snagged 104 of his 135 targets. Again, this is the strength of this class. This tight end class just doesn't drop passes. Difference between him and Colston here is he's a much better at yards after the catch. He does a much better job at forcing missed tackles. Super smart, better red zone threat. He has shorter arms. Again, not a really good blocker either. That's not the strength of this class. He's not really good at the long ball. He's not a deep threat with this game. He doesn't do a great job at getting out of man press coverage, but he's just a guy that you're going to be able to use everywhere, line him up everywhere along the offense. You want to line him up occasionally as an X. You could. I think you can line him up as a Z. I think you can line him up all over in line, get him out of the backfield, have him take handoffs. He's going to be a red zone weapon. And that's just the difference between the two. Tyler Warren is just going to be an offensive weapon as opposed to a traditional tight end that you see. And if he gets to the right team, out there who can utilize him, I think, man, he could be a very special player. Get him with a really good creative offensive coordinator. Not that I want to see the Chicago Bears draft him, or that any team really should draft a tight end in the top 10. I know it's probably going to happen this year. Really good, smart offensive coordinator. He would be fun to watch in a Ben Johnson type of offense. But Tyler Warren, again, Pro Bowl potential. You got two of those guys in this draft who just have absolute high ceilings and really good floors. Both of these players, I would be stunned if they didn't succeed and have really long 2-3 contracts in the NFL. So again, this is a top-heavy class with Warren and Loveland. The middle, you got some pass-catching tight ends. You don't have a lot of tight ends who can do both. Mason Taylor's your best attempt at it, but again, he's okay at maybe at blocking. So he's why I had him at number 3. Just gives you a little bit more versatility in having both pass catching and some blocking ability. So overall, it's a decent class. There are some guys that you will see in day 3 that have some really good upside. Didn't really go over those much this year. You've got some really good athletes around a Gadsden. You've got Gunnar Helm. You've got Joshua Simon. If you're looking for a good blocking tight end, one of the best around in a little while, Jackson Hawes. So there are some other guys that your team's going to be able to find in the 5th and 6th rounds this year. But really good class. Looking forward to seeing where Colston and Warren go. How high will they go? Really good Pro Bowl potential. So with that, thank you guys so much for joining me for the tight end episode of the Draft Beard podcast. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me over the last 25 or so minutes. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Draft Beard podcast.
The Draft Beard podcast.